Hello and welcome to the Alpha Anywhere demo and Q&A webcast. I'm Dave McCormick, VP of Product Management here at Alpha Software, and I am pleased to present Dion McCormick, our lead solutions engineer. Dion is of no relation to me, oddly enough. We also are here with Sarah Mitchell, who is in charge of documentation. She'll be here also to help us with questions and point us towards links. And we are here to answer your questions. So let's get started. Hello, Dion, are you there?
Yes, I am. Welcome, everybody. Welcome.
Excellent. Let me go ahead and make you the presenter. And there's your screen.
Awesome. Excellent. Well, thank you, everybody, for taking time out of your schedule. I'm broadcasting from New Orleans, and it's a lot of fun, actually. Really cool town. If you haven't been here, you definitely have to get down this way. There's a lot to see. It's Mardi Gras this week, so having some fun, checking out the parades and experiencing all the nice things that they have here in New Orleans. The food is just crazy. I'll be carrying back with me a few more pounds is what I'm anticipating. So it's going to be a fun week here. Oops. So again, thank you everybody for taking your time. We have a really interesting demonstration today. We're going to retake up the ViewBox and talk a little bit about one of the coolest features, capabilities that have been added to it in a long time. As we always will be taking questions, so take the time to put your questions in the Q&A section of the GoToWebinar control panel, and we'll get to as many of those as possible. And we'd love to hear your questions, and we get some ahead of time. We try to answer those. I think I have a couple that I need to look at today, so it should be really entertaining there. And we'll go through all those and also any that come in on here. So help us help you and put that in there. So what we're going to talk about today is one thing that you can do with a ViewBox, which is very, very powerful, which is attach it to an API. Just really cool and very simple on how you do that. But before I jump into that, I wanted to kind of give a little color. Actually, the reason I'm down here is I was attending a builders conference, a very interesting conference, and one of our esteemed developers has developed a powerful platform for that industry. And they used Alpha Anywhere, and what was exciting about this, they also used Alpha Transform for the mobile component, mainly because it offered an enormous amount of capabilities and time to deployment. He could basically build the forms, get them out almost instantaneously without having to go through an extensive development process. So Alpha Transform is very, very powerful from the standpoint of it's fast, it's easy, it's super powerful, and you can do things very rapidly. So at the very least, you can use it to prototype your requirements. And from there, you can then implement more of a full-blown solution in Alpha Anywhere or continue with Transform. But one of the interesting things I found out, which was very fascinating, and I think is kind of indicative of the market, is that everything's going mobile. These individuals are out visiting new homes. They don't have access to internet sometimes, depending on the scenario. So what is super important is not only mobile, but offline mobile, which again, both Alpha Anywhere and the Transform provide you. The other thing that was very fascinating, and this is something that I think really tilts it in Transform's direction, is the fact that a lot of these individuals have a core job, which is doing this inspection work out in the field, and they have a very specific workflow process and other pieces there that have been enabled by our developer. But the other thing that was very fascinating was the fact that a lot of them actually do other things along with it. And what we were finding out, which was very powerful, was that not only could they saw the benefit of having Alpha Transform doing the inspection aspect, but they were like, hey, I have these other ideas. I have these other things. And with the Alpha Transform capability, they were able to extend and do other kind of forms within the system. So really exciting, really fun to see the reception. People were very excited about it. And beyond that, they really saw the ability to have them be able to do these forms beyond even the normal kind of forms that are available. So very fun stuff. So if you're looking, I know a lot of people on this are already using the Transform sandbox. We encourage you to continue to do it. Use as a prototyping tool, test things out. You got an opportunity, go for it. It really is very fast and simple to do that, and you'll really, really enjoy it from there. So that was kind of just a quick update from the field here. Really exciting stuff. And remember, Transform Tuesday. Again, if you're not connected on there, make sure to get connected, because you're going to really learn a lot. I mean, just the continued improvements and capabilities. Just I learned more this week too. It was just really fun to see all the neat things that you can do with Transform and how it enables whole new things to be done that would normally take a lot of work. Okay, so with that, I want to kind of dive back into the ViewBox control. As we've talked about, the ViewBox control is a newer control, but one that I think is very critical to creating just fantastic user experiences, primarily because the ViewBox is flexible. It doesn't require you to have, it's not as structured, and more importantly is you can use outside design resources to create beautiful forms and then use the ViewBox to bring them to life. Very, very entertaining and very fun. So as we mentioned before, the ViewBox control is basically taking a set of JSON and a set of HTML and CSS and JavaScript, and merging it into a data-driven display. And the flexibility is enormous. And one of the areas of flexibility, which is fun, is the fact of where do you get your data? You can basically get your data from different sources, such as a SQL database. You can get it from a list box. You can do your own custom XBasic. But one of the most interesting things that came out recently was the ability to connect it directly to a web API. So essentially cutting out the middleman, and really it provides a lot of powerful, and especially as we move forward, we're finding out that now that you can build web APIs with Alpha, it may be even easier to just build a web API with Alpha and then connect your ViewBoxes to those APIs versus trying to go to a database. And the beauty of that is that you can migrate these APIs as things change, and the ViewBox doesn't have to change. So very, very fun stuff there. So what I want to do is a quick demonstration of how easy it is to connect and deploy a ViewBox connected to a web API with the built-in functionality. And again, as I go through this, if you have questions, make sure to put your questions in the Q&A section. Dave will be monitoring those, and if there are any, we'll go over those as we get to a breakpoint. So with that, do a little quick process check. Dave, audio coming through, everything good?
Everything is A-okay.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Okay, so I am over here in my development environment. Well, this isn't the development environment. This is actually my virtual machine, but I have my Alpha development environment. And the example I'm going to use today, I'm going to use an off-the-shelf. There's a company, and let me go ahead and go here to their website. I use this for, oops, there we go, regress. Let's go there, go to the top level. And this is kind of fun. There's a free website. It's called RecRes. It's recres.in. And they basically have some pre-made APIs that you can just play with. So you don't have to actually build your APIs. You can do it, and they've mocked this all up. This is called a mock interface because it's just fake data and other pieces from there. And so they have a whole series of different web APIs, so you can test out different APIs, like a single user data. And this will actually give you an API that will pretend to be a call to a single user API endpoint. From there. And let me just make sure this is working correctly before I go there. Make sure I haven't lost network connection. Of course, live demo, gotta love it. Hold on one second here. I'm gonna pause this. Is my audio coming through okay there?
Audio is just fine.
Yeah, okay, let me do this. It might be. Let me go ahead and set that up here. I want to make sure it's all set. Thanks for everybody's patience real quick. Well, this is annoying.
The power of the live demo, right?
I know. It was just working a few minutes ago. I had it all there. Okay, there we go. Okay, I'm back, everybody. And who knows what's going on. Hey, it's free. So what do you expect, huh? So for an instance, there is an API call that goes and gets a user's, and you'll see over here on the right-hand side, here is your response. And you'll see this response includes some metadata and then the actual data itself, which is a series of user records. Very straightforward, very cool, very easy to do. And you can see they have other APIs you can test out and do from there. So what I'm going to do is show you how I can connect this particular API to the ViewBox and show the power of how you can quickly develop front ends and user interfaces on top of APIs. So with that in mind, I'm going to go into the alpha environment. I am going to go ahead and create a new UX component, and I'm just going to create a blank one for now. And then once I've done that, it's going to open up and allow me to add a ViewBox control. Now I'll hit controls here, and what we're gonna do is go down here, and the ViewBox is under data controls. And the reason for that is that it is a data-driven technology, meaning that it can connect to back-end data sources and interact with them. So I'm gonna go ahead and click ViewBox here, and I'm gonna call this VB example, and I'm adding a ViewBox control to my user interface here. And in a moment, you'll see I've got my ViewBox. Nothing's been set up at this time. It's just a plain vanilla ViewBox. So I'll go ahead and double click on this. Now, as we've demonstrated before, the first thing you do is it can be static HTML, but we also use data. And so when you select data as the source for the information, then you'll see you have a different set of selections that are available here. So you can use a list control, which we've demonstrated. You could actually use JavaScript. You could use a static JSON if it's something that's not going to change, database query. But you'll notice you have one here called REST API. Now, previously, you could do a REST API call, but you'd had to kind of create your own XBasic custom function, get that data, and then pass it back. But we're cutting out the middleman. So I'm going to go ahead and select REST API. So you'll see here, and it supports all things like export things from arguments. But first, notice this. This is very interesting. Make the call from. So now that we've selected the REST API, we're going to tell it where to go. So you'll notice you actually have two different calls, and this is very intriguing. Server, what will happen is the UX will call the server will call the API, get the data, and return it. But this has the ability to bypass even the server, so you can create a front end that literally goes from the mobile device right to whatever that API is, which actually, again, provides some efficiency, speed, and flexibility in terms of what you want to do. But I'm going to leave it for server now. I'm going to go to my API endpoint. Now, the API endpoint is where that web API is at. So I'm going to go back in here, and I'm going to go ahead, and first I'm going to copy this. This is the URL right here. So it's https://recres_in. So I'm going to go ahead and paste that right there. But the endpoint for this, and this is where you see the different one, is right here. So I'm going to grab this as my endpoint, the actual request that's made from the API. So it's the combination of the URL and the endpoint right there. And so I'll go right here, click on the right thing, paste that. And you'll notice it pastes two. No, so there's my endpoint. Recres_in API there. Now, this is an interesting aspect. So if I go in and look at fields right now, you'll see that I don't have any fields because versus like an XBasic callback, it doesn't go out and get those fields for you. The method we use here is something called sample data. So we have to actually give it a little sample data to develop the ViewBox, and then after that's done, it will make the actual endpoint calls. So I'm going to go here, I'm going to go back into here, and guess what? Here's my sample data because it gives me it right there. So you may want to use, and you could use another tool such as Postman to actually exercise the API first, get some sample data from it, or just hand code the sample data, and then you can go back into here and put that sample data here. Now notice here, you can also make the REST call to get sample data, which I guess I was a little miss there. So let's try that. I'm going to go ahead and instead of me pasting in this, I'm going to go ahead and make an example call to get the sample data, and you'll see that it brought back some data for me right there. So it does the sample data for me. So I'll click OK. So again, you can either use Postman to get the sample data, paste it in here, or you can just call the endpoint. It depends on, if you've set it up. There's some nuances in terms of the security authorization and stuff. It may be easier just for you to exercise and get that sample data and put it in here. By the way, one of the cool things in here is I can click Reformat JSON, makes it a lot more readable. I can also show this in the JSON viewer, which is kind of cool. Shows me my hierarchy of my data. Really fun stuff, very neat stuff that you can do there. Okay, so I've set up my view box, I've set up my endpoint, I've got my sample data. Now if I go to fields, you'll notice here's my fields. So it's automatically created those fields. So now I'm kind of back into UX/lists kind of world where now I don't have to really worry about the API. I can work on the representation of the data. Now, very important, I need to highlight and show you something. You'll notice this data. It's actually kind of an interesting nested. You have some metadata up top, page, per page, total, etc. Then the actual data elements are here. So this is a parent-child kind of structure where you have the parent level and then you have the child level, and the child level consists of a series of there. So with that in nature, Alpha's smart enough to go, oh, look, you have a setup page, and you have here what's called a data group. And if you've done anything with Transform, you'll know the term data group, because we use the same concept since Transform is all JavaScript. So you'll see in here that you have a data group here, and that data group consists of these elements here. And you can mix and match what you want to do here. So now that I have my structure, I can go to my layout here and start building my layout. And let me go ahead and show you how to do that there. So I'm going to click Add Item. Okay, so you'll see first that, we have our data controls here, and you'll see these pieces here, but what we need to do is add something very important, which is the data group. So if you just start adding in, like if I just started adding in these fields, so let me go ahead and do that. Let me go ahead and highlight these and just put them in there, and I'll click there, and you'll notice that I just put in those items, but the problem is they're sort of nested items. But you'll see Alpha says, oh, whoa there, pal. You're missing the data group level because it needs that to understand the structure of how to lay it out. And the neat thing is later on, when you start learning more about the JSON templating, that data group allows you to do some really fun stuff. Like you get the count of items in a data group, etc. So I'm going to go back here. I'm going to go ahead and delete all these. And I'm going to go through that process again. I'm going to click here, Add Item. I'm going to select my items here, and now you'll notice that it said, hey there, partner, you've selected them, but some are in containers. Do you want to add this enclosing container? And then click yes, and you'll notice what it does is that it didn't put in a data closing. Now, let me fix that. That's interesting. Let me go add an item, and what you need to do is put in a data group here. So I'll go ahead and put in a data group. Okay. So now I have a data group here with the items in it. So now it understands, oh, these items are there. Now I could go ahead and test this right now. So when I preview it, you'll see that it's there's the ID, the username, etc. And you'll notice also that it's iterating through the items. It's a little hard to see here. So now we need to do formatting, but what it's doing is it's taking that JavaScript, and then in the layout, it's iterating through from there. So I'm going to go ahead and so I can now start playing with this, modifying this to how I want it to be. So for instance, I could go into Freeform Editor and modify that. I could do a lot of other fun stuff with it here. And I won't go through the detail of the actual formatting, but there's just tons of capabilities that you're able to do with each one of them. And you don't have to show all this. If I don't want to show the ID, I can get rid of that and just show the first name, last name, etc. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to Freeform Editor. So this is sort of like when you're building a UX, you have containers and items with containers, and it's really handy to put these things from that standpoint in here. So what I'm going to do is actually convert this to what's called Freeform, and now you'll see this is the actual structure of how it goes. And I'm going to go in here and put some breaks. These are just HTML, so I can put any HTML I want. There we go. Do my preview, and now you'll see there's the first name, the last name, and the URL there. Go back to my layout here. I can say first. So I'm going to put in some fixed text here. There we go. And you'll see first name Eve, last name, hold, etc. So the items that are in the curly brackets are what are coming back from it. And you'll notice since I have this data and closed data, it's going to iterate through these items over and over and over again. Thus, you're seeing this kind of representation here. And also, man, I'm gonna go crazy here. I'm gonna try something, and it probably will blow up. But image tag. Let's go ahead and do this. Okay. So I'm gonna go get the image tag here. And I think there's a shortcut for how to do this, but I'm just going to do this. So I'm going to grab this. So this is an image tag. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to paste that image tag right there. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is notice the source is smiley.gif. Well, I'm going to actually put in the source of the URL that's coming back from the back end. So now I'm going to paste that there. I wonder if I have to put the quotes around. I'm going to go ahead and do
quotation marks. Yep.
Yeah, I think I need to do that there. And then I'm also going to put a slash D over here.
Yeah.
And then alt, I might go ahead, instead of putting that there, let's go ahead and put the first name as the alt. So it actually, if you're hovering over it, or it doesn't represent, you have that there. Okay. Are we ready? Oh my gosh. I am, some days,
Brilliant.
Pretty cool. So now I've got the thing there, so I can click OK. I can save it. I'll call this ViewBox from API _UX, and I'll do a working preview. And you see it's calling the API, grabbing that data, and here it goes, and putting that there. And so as you can see, immediately I have a lot of flexibility. I can have some fun with this. Like for instance, I can go in here, go back into the view box, and I can say, you know what, my layout is I really want first name and last name to be on the same line. So I'll just go like that. And then the image, you know what, I want that up front. So you could have fun. You could put like in there, you could put CSS tables and put this as a table structure or regular alpha, go in there, and now it starts to look like something like this. Or I can go in here and say, oh, you know what, I want to go here, and let's get rid of that break. And we'll just go ahead and put there. And now our layout is going to be, image with the first name, last name, etc. As you can see now, instead of me like trying to line things and take out new fields and do all that, now I just have to apply the HTML. And the reality is, and I highly recommend you go on to Fiverr or Upwork, find a really good CSS person, an HTML CSS, and say, and you say, okay, here's my basic HTML right here, make it look good, or have them build it, and then you just have to wire it up from there. And it really provides you an enormous amount of ability to make very beautiful, and especially on mobile, you can really optimize the experience for mobile. So as you can see, it's really straightforward. The first thing I did was identified my URL endpoint and had that. Watch, I'll show you that in a moment. Then I got sample data and I pasted that in there, or I made the call to get it because I need that to build my front end piece. That sets up my fields, and you'll notice it's going to show the hierarchy. Then I go into my ViewBox layout. I started with the Genie just to kind of get me kick-started. It took care of putting in these things here, but you don't have to. You go right in here and start doing it. In fact, down here, you can insert information right from here. And there's far more capabilities that I haven't even touched on how to do this stuff. Then once you have that, you lay it out and you're good to go and everything's fun. In fact, let's go ahead and go here and let's put page 3, okay? And let me do a working preview and let's see if it gives me, so you'll notice, check this out, it gave me a different set of people from that standpoint just by doing the URL endpoint. And that's another thing that's very important. And do you guys, I don't want to take too much from Q&A, but do you want me to try something kind of interesting? Try and make this data driven?
Yeah, we do.
I'll do that next time. I don't want to waste time. But what you can do is you'll notice that in my endpoint here, this is a dynamic element here. So what I can do is create an argument. I'm going to go ahead and try this real quick. I'll go page. Let's say it's numeric. And I'm going to set it at runtime, and the value is 2 for now. Okay. Now I'm going to go back in here, and I'm going to go to, I'm going to put in here a drop-down box called page. See, I'm doing it anyway. Didn't even, okay. I'm going to go page 1, page 2. By the way, this could be filled also from a API call. The idea is that maybe I didn't know how many pages, so I got it there. Okay, so now I go back in here and I go to my argument and I say the set value at runtime, and I want to get it from that page dropdown. So now I have an argument that it will, whenever it goes, it's going to read the value of that page. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here and I'm going to go here and I'm going to insert an argument called page. So it's going to dynamically cover it there. Now I need to do one other thing, is that I'm going to go here, and when I change the page, I want it to update my date there. So I'm going to go here to the page dropdown. I might be getting ahead of everybody, but going there. I'm going to go down here to the on change of it. I'm going to add an action, which is a ViewBox action, ViewBox Control actions. I'm going to select that action to be refresh, and the ViewBox I'd like to do is example. So the idea is that when I select that page, it's going to set the argument, and if everything works good, then it's going to do there. Actually, let's make that animated. I want to see what that looks like. Let's have some fun. Okay. So now, if this works correctly, drum roll please, and it could be there. I wonder if I'll, because the page set up. Oh no, it's going south. Wait a second. Oh, I should have tried this before. Bad Dion. Oh wait, no. Wait, no. Hey everybody, slow down there. Page 2, page 3. Ah, seems to be giving me the same data. Yeah. It is doing the refresh option.
Yeah, that it is.
Okay. So I'll have to fix that. I'm not sure what's given the issue there. So I think it's page, my argument, sample data. Yeah. Seems like it's defaulting to the one there. So I'll go find that out and we'll have it for next time. So, but that kind of shows you how you can make data-driven ViewBox pages with interactions. So you could have one ViewBox that's bringing down like a list of information, and a second ViewBox that it displays it, and they can interact with each other. And you'll notice there's no coding. It's just calling these APIs. And remember, now that you can create APIs in Alpha, you can expose your own APIs, so you can actually build your user interfaces instead of on the database, but on an API, which opens up a huge amount of flexibility in terms of what you can do. So a lot of fun there. So I'll have to find out what I did wrong here. And it's obviously pilot error somewhere. So if anybody has any ideas, feel free to put a comment in there. But that is the ViewBox driven by a web API, super flexible, fun. You know, once you can have a lot of fun with the layout and stuff. And as you can see, it also kind of keeps your UX pretty simple. You can see it's all kind of embedded in here. So I don't have a ton of like text boxes, text areas, other kind of things there that you can do that you would need for all these things here. So allows you to do some fun stuff. So with that, I'm gonna open it up for questions. See if anybody has any questions.
We do have questions, as a matter of fact. Let's take a look through. I know we got a couple by email just before the session started, so let me just take a quick look at the one.
Yeah, one was how to put like a slideshow in.
That one was interesting, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and in fact, I'm going to go ahead and do something real quick. Okay, so the question from the person is that in the header of a UX, I'd like to have some like a slider, that's showing different pictures here. So what you can actually do is there's a couple different ways to do that. One, which is a little bit more example, I could create a view box that it does, and it doesn't have to go to an API. I can actually go to a database that has like a list of files and names. And what I can do is I can put that view box in my header, and then every few moments, set a timer. So a quick and dirty way to do this very quickly is you have a database table that has, or it doesn't even, if it's going to be fixed, you could actually put it in static JSON, but it's going to be basically an image URL. And then what you do is in your layout right here, you just use this trick right here. You just put that image source and it happens to be that URL. Then what you do is you have a script that refreshes this view box, sets a value. Like if it worked, you would have like a hidden field that had the image number, like maybe the image goes from 1 to 10. And what you would do is set that hidden field, then say refresh the view box, and boom, you'll see a new image displayed in the view box because it will refresh that. You won't have to page out or anything else from there. Now, the cool thing is you can then put in multiple images. You have a lot of flexibility to how to do that. Now, the question is, well, how do I make sure this thing is triggered so often? So here's how I would do that is I'd go to JavaScript actions. I would add my action, which is update image, okay? And then I'd go in here and I'd say refresh, it's ViewBox, okay? ViewBox Control act, oh, no, form, wait, no, ViewBox, sorry, hit the wrong one. And I'm just gonna say refresh data. I wonder if that's the difference. And then I just pick my banner, okay? So I'm gonna go there. So I've got my refresh data. And the other thing you'd have to do in here is do something where you randomly set like a field underneath here, or incremental field kind of scenario, which I won't show here, but you can do that very simply. Now that I have that, I'm gonna go into the properties. I'm gonna search for timer, and I have a timer event. I'm gonna say every, let's say, just to make it fast, every 10 seconds I wanna run a little piece of script. So that's my timer every 10 seconds. Now I go to my client-side events and search for timer, and this is the on timer event. So this, whatever's in here is gonna get triggered. And we kind of showed that, I think, last week with someone else. There was some question there. But check this out. I can say JavaScript insert code to run an action, run that action. And this action would do two things. One, it would increment the argument, and then it would then refresh it. So now I can go in here, and again, it's not fully working, but if I wait 10 seconds, should have made that 5. I didn't want to be too crazy there. Yeah, there you go. Come on. Oh, you know what? It did refresh, but since it's the same darn stuff, do I have it on, let me go back into my actions here, go in here, and I'm gonna animate it. That way we'll see it. Because it did refresh the data, and that's what you want. It would just all of a sudden a different image would be shown. And so that's pretty cool stuff there. And then let me go to my properties here and change this to 5. Okay. So it did actually recall, and that's key, it did a web API call and refreshed the data in there every so often. So it's kind of happening there. Da-da. And so every 5 seconds it's going to do that. And, you know, that's what it's doing. So you could create a slider or an image update very simply by using that. And again, you don't have to use an API. You can just connect to a database table that has a list of image names. The only other thing is you need to increment which image you want to show at each time. And that's, you know, just by putting like a hidden field on your screen that you increment by 1, and then you look up, you know, row 1, then row 2, and then that data is what updates the view box. So so that's how I would approach it. The reason I would do that is two reasons. One, you have infinite flexibility. It doesn't have to just be an image. You could put other text around it. 2, it's very lightweight. View boxes are minuscule. You really, you don't have a lot of heavy stuff in there, and you can use different techniques to make your images smaller, you know, so they're there. You look at the control here, you have one control and it's very small versus a list control or other things that can be heavier, or even our gallery control. The other most important part too is that with the layout, you can then also put in this image a URL, and that URL could also be dynamically populated at the same time of the image. So you could have a table that said image number, image name, link, or thing you need to do. And therefore, when they click on it, you could essentially have a behavior that's associated with that. Now, the other thing you can do, which is really cool, and I'll just mention this, is you can go into items here. So let's go ahead and add an item here, and I'll go test. And I'm going to go into my click event. I'm just going to, this is, we kind of covered this before, but I'm just going to go alert, hello. So now that I've created that item, I can go back to my layout here, and then I can go right here and insert item and select test. So now whenever anybody clicks on the image, it creates an event to occur. So you could either do it by just embedding a URL here using the standard image URL, or more fun is you could actually write your own action that can become much more sophisticated. Like maybe you're updating and showing a panel card and updating another view box or doing things like that. So let me go ahead and try this here. So that a lot of fun you can do with items that give you a lot more flexibility on your user interface. So let's go ahead, and when this kind of comes back up and renders, I think it's just that API gets heavily hit by other people. So this is probably waiting for that API to respond with some sample data, which, by the way, over time, you'll want to have your own APIs from there. So let's give it a moment. Hopefully we'll do that. Oh, there we go. Check it out. See? I just click on one of the images. It triggers that item. In this case, it just does a simple alert. But that could be, for instance, make another call, or open up a UX, open up a view box, add an item to a list control. The sky's the limit. And the cool thing about that is that, remember, let me show you this cool. And I hope that I'm not going off the range, but let me go ahead and do this here. I'm going to go over here to JavaScript actions. I'm going to create a new action. I'm going to call image click action. Okay. And then I'm going to go here, and I'm going to go to my image click action. I'm going to add an image here. And the message is hello webinar. And all this is doing is showing a message. So I've got that there. So I'm going to go back into my view box. I'm going to go into my items here, and I'm going to go to my on click event. So this is for that item. Now, instead of just writing JavaScript, guess what? I'm going to put in Action Javascript, and I'm going to run my image click action. So as you can see, you don't have to write a bunch of JavaScript. You can just do that. And if you combine this with an XBasic callback, it's just crazy how powerful it can get. So now I'll click here and check out my action right here that I created. A little more subtle. And you'll notice every time I click here, it's triggering that Action JavaScript, which is doing these little transient messages. And by the way, these transient messages, we haven't really covered them. We really need to go into them, because transient message can have like buttons and actions and other things that are available that you can click on them to then take subsequent actions or do other things here. So they're very cool. Transient actions are a lot of fun, and they look beautiful. Like, I'm going to go ahead and launch this, then I'll go to the next question. But that was an example. That's a word to the wise. Get your question in beforehand, and you'll get hopefully a really good answer. Okay.
Excellent.
So, but check out how nice this is down here. It's got highlighting. If I make it smaller, it just, it looks really beautiful. I love those transient messages. It's one of my favorite new features in the system here. And you can see this is running in my browser here, and it's making this call. Now, let's do one last thing. Can we do one last thing? Is that okay? I don't mean to be abusive about this. I don't mean to be abusive. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to launch this in my browser. Okay, and I don't know if this is going to work. I don't have a. Okay, so we know things are working here. Now remember, when we set up this view box, we said we wanted to use the server to service it. So I'm going to turn off my built-in application server. So now it's off. So let's see what happens here. It should fail, because what's going on is Alpha is trying to call back to the server and do it, but you notice it's not working because the server's not responding. Now under the covers, you'll be able to see errors and stuff like that. So let's do the following. Let's go back into here. Let's go ahead and turn on our server to start. Always good. And go back to my ViewBox example, and I'm going to go here to data source, and I'm going to say client. Okay. Oh, I have to do an import JavaScript. Okay, let me try that. It's just going to be return HTTP. Let's go back in here. That's what you get for getting crazy. Okay. This should work here. By the way, since it's JavaScript, you can dynamically create that on the fly. Really fun stuff you can do. Okay. And I like page 2 because it has the cat in the helmet, which I purposely picked that because of Sarah, just to let you know. Okay. Okay, there you go. Okay. So first, I'm going to save this and test in my working preview. I make sure that it's doing there. And I want my cat hat. Oh, wait, no, it does. Come on. No. Did I do something wrong? Let's see, argument fields, ViewBox layout, everything's good. Okay, return HTTP. Might help if I do that.
You said
See
the
that
doubles,
right there?
yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for everybody for not seeing that and giving me the comments. Unless there's some
Actually, quite a few people did actually. We're just trying to see if you put it in. So I'd like to personally thank David, Stephen, Michael, who also.
I bet there's a betting pool where they have it now. They're saying how long before Dion figures out that he's an idiot.
It's pretty much the over-under on that. Yeah.
Trust me, that's getting longer and longer and longer every week. Anyway, but watch what's happening. So it is my cat, and that's not my cat, but I mean it's the cat thing there. Okay. Is it refreshing? Okay, the transit message is there. Okay, so now what I want to try and it wasn't refreshing. I just wanted to see if it refreshed. But I'll cut it off of this.
Doesn't the transient message appear when it refreshes?
No, just the this should be refreshing every 10 seconds.
I don't know.
Something different. So anyway, I'll test out. But the idea then would be once I publish this into my server, actually, you know what? I'm going to show you how. I'm going to prove that this works right now. So, okay, I've got it in here. And even if it doesn't refresh, here, it got that data. Now, what it did in this case is it didn't go to the server. So I'm going to click that again, and I'm proving I'm getting the data. Okay, everybody agree? So now I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to turn off the server. And I'm going to refresh this. And no, I screwed up. It won't work when I refresh the whole thing. It's only when you do the callback within it. But the bottom line, and I apologize I couldn't prove it, is that when you do that, then your server could be down and this UI would still work. And more importantly, this call is going to their service, not your web server. So if anything, you've taken load off your alpha environment, because now if you're not going to your server for the refresh, then you're just consuming other people's resources. So there's some really cool stuff because of this, both the server side and the client side, where you can make direct calls from there. So sorry it didn't fully work, but that's what I'm going to say.
Not at all. Hey, so view boxes. Let's take a step back. Before you did this long series on view boxes, there is a question, sort of a real basic one, which is, look, I used to build stuff in grids, and then I built stuff in UXs using list controls, and now you're telling me about view boxes. Why am I going to go with a view box, let's say, over a list control? What does a view box buy me?
Very good point. Okay. So first and foremost, view boxes are lightweight. A list control actually is a pretty heavyweight component, especially if you have like a bunch of them on the same page. And the reason why is that list controls not only display data, but they also manage the edit process. So therefore, they have all the capabilities built into it to bring data offline, manage it offline, edit it offline, and then synchronize it back when you're online to the back end. So there's a lot that goes with it. Now, what we found is that people use list boxes and continue doing it. That's the way to go. You really want to move to list boxes because they're responsive, they're modern, they work well on mobile and desktop. So you're on the right direction there. The other issue regarding list boxes are view boxes, which you want to look at, is we found people would take and have a bunch of different lists on their thing, and some of those were not really used for editing. They were just display only. So essentially what was happening is we were finding that it was kind of making these pages bigger and bigger and bigger, thus may have some performance other impacts there. So the ViewBox came along because the ViewBox control provided a lightweight alternative to really just laying out data and displaying it in a pleasant way. It makes it a lot more flexible. And since it's a data-driven control, it can work in conjunction with lists, but it can also skip that completely and go right back to the back-end system there. So definitely keep with list controls and do as much as you can with there. But if you have a situation where you have, I call it a read-only situation, where you want nice formatting, and in fact, you can make a view box look and act like a list control, except it won't manage the data editing process. So that's a great question. It's really the history of we moved from grids to lists. That's the way to go. Then, but lists have a lot of built-in functionality. They're fairly large controls. So we found, oh man, if you've got a mobile app and you've got 20 different lists, you know, it's doing a lot of stuff on there. There's a lot of things being managed on that app during the process. And so if only 10 of those were actually data editing, the other were just display and other elements there, then it made sense saying, well, let's just replace that, replace those list boxes with view boxes, reducing the size and footprint and increasing performance and capability. The other thing that's cool about view boxes is that it has the ability, you know, to be JSON templated, and the list control to a large degree does. So it gives you a lot of flexibility in layout, as I demonstrated today, and freedom for you to create more of what we call pixel perfect type interfaces, which are, you know, more what you would see on mobile apps and things out there. So great question. It basically is lighter weight, a lot of flexibility. You can skip the middleman, especially now with the web API. So it can just become another tool in your arsenal to improve performance and make things really, really nice and fast and easy to do. But if you're going to be editing data, definitely stick with the list detail view or the list form view. And the form view and the view box are very similar animals, kind of built on the same architecture. So if you know, they're similar capabilities, but the flexibility is very powerful in terms of lightweight capability with the ViewBox control. So great question.
Excellent. We actually have two questions that involve Twitter, which I'm surprised that even when we get one. But let's start with the first one. It's at the very beginning. And it said, here's a person who wants to automatically post to social media, and that includes Twitter, but also maybe Facebook and some other things. And they want it to happen when a certain database event happens, like an insert or something like that. How would you go about structuring or setting up something like that up so that when the user inserts a record, not only does the record go into a database, but the record is also sent via API to Twitter or something like that?
So if I can ask a quick clarification question, are you inserting the record through like a UX control or a grid or some other, you know, are you controlling that insertion?
Let's go with the assumption that Alpha Anywhere is making that for now, unless I hear otherwise.
Okay, good, yeah. Good. So the way I'd approach that is that if you have a UX component, what will happen is when you have a data-driven UX, let me go to one of my other ones here, so bear with me. Let's see, default, go in here.
And in fact, he's written back that he's doing it from within a UX.
Okay, great. So a couple ways to do it. Let's say we're doing it with a list. Let's use the modern method. So I'm going to cover two things. One is I'm going to do it with the list, and then also show it if you're just using like a UX as a data entry piece here. If you're using a list, then what you can do is first, let me take a step back. To insert it into Twitter, Twitter has a full-blown API. So basically, you just need to use our, let me go ahead and show this, Twitter insert item with curl. Let me see if there's an example of that. Oops, if I can spell. Okay. 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 So first, and we've covered this before, is like post status update. This is the documentation for how you, so this is the source endpoint, and I think this is this. Is that status, or which one would I do? Post retrieve. Okay, post read. So you got to go in here, and then what's kind of cool about that is, let's see if they have a curl example. There you go. Okay. So you would use, so you'll notice here is your curl, and you're gonna have to do a little research, but you get your consumer key, your generated, all those kind of things, and then you can curl, put that information in there, and notice the status is equal to hello. This is actually where it's putting the information here. So we take this and we turn it into an XBasic class, and now that's an XBasic function or class. Once you have that, I can now go into, and I'll go into here, I'm going to my list of customers, and what I'm going to do is there's a really cool feature on here that if I go to the list properties, let me go to list properties, it's on, I think it's after, no, it's not on there. It's yeah, okay. After synchronize. So there is a command, like if you're using a list, after the list has been synchronized, it fires this xbasic function, which could then go ahead and do that other step that goes with it, you know. So you know that, okay, I've edited something in the list and I've synchronized it. Then there's a prototype that I can go in and trigger my function that puts it into Twitter at that point in time. Now, if you're using a grid, in that case, in the grid, you have a server-side event called, oh, this isn't an editable grid, so I'm just going to go ahead and make it editable real quick and go back there. Okay, so I'll go to the server-side events. I have, where's my server-side event? After, there should be an after, maybe because I don't have it set up. Let's go ahead and try this real quick. Ready? Okay. Editable. Oh, I see. I got to do there. Okay, now I go there. Now you'll see there is a after update record. And there you can, again, call a function to take the data that was put in there, and you have all the data and execute it from there. And then last but not least is if I go to a UX here, and let's see if that one, now so that's there. I'm trying to find, I'm trying to find one that has an editable UX. Okay, yep. Okay, when you create an editable, you're going to have on the after dialog validate a execute server-side action called save data. And in there, you can go, and I'm clicking on there and going here and saying edit action. There is a after record insert function, after record update. And again, these are, so at each point, there is a way for you to trap when the insert occurred. It depends on the way you've implemented it. Then in there, you have a function that just takes the data that was inserted. And what's nice about these functions, if it's a new record, these functions will always give you the last ID inserted, meaning the new ID in your database. So then you can use that to relook up the data. If it's still information, you can pull it right off the UX, et cetera here. So there's always these hooks that allow you to do a post insert, post update transaction after it. So first, I would say focus just on creating a script that inserts something into Twitter. Get that worked out. That's going to be your first job. Then once you have there, then you can go in and, depending on which way you're doing it, go ahead and insert that function into one of these sort of action points, and you will be inserting Twitters as fast as you can enter data in your database.
Excellent. Okay, here's another question, and this has to do, the other Twitter question was actually a really short one, which was, would it be possible to have a ViewBox that was connected to the Twitter API that refreshed automatically?
And the answer is yes. And the way I would probably do that is instead of, in my ViewBox, instead of using the REST API, I would do what's called custom. And then then you create an XBasic script. And that will just give you a lot more flexibility, because it's probably a little bit, because how do you handle the security and all that other stuff? It may overwhelm the ability to connect directly from your, possibly you could, I'm not sure. But if you do custom, then you can just use XBasic scripting to basically make the calls and gather the data and then update the user interface from there. So that's how I would look at approaching there. And the cool thing is, once you've kind of built these Twitter classes, you can use them anywhere. When any kind of thing happens, you can just trigger that either from a UX, a list control, a grid, or in some backend XBasic processing you're doing. It gives you a lot of flexibility.
Awesome. Okay, so here's a question about data validation. There's a person who wants to add a field to their UX, a date field. But they don't necessarily want to have it, I guess, tagged as a date field, because they want to let the user sort of just type the date right in, like, for example, 1/1/2019. However, they also want to do some data validation against that once it's been typed in. So they want to make sure that the date that has been entered is before today's date.
Okay.
The question, or the thing that they're running into, is that people are able to type things into the date field like 1-1-2019 testing, and they're wondering, is there a way that you could get that could resolve that just to 1.1.2019 or something like that. In other
So
words,
you have homework. Is
Okay.
go here to momentjs.com, and I'll go ahead and put that in here. So as Alpha, we know we don't do everything. So the cool thing about it is that you can embed JavaScript libraries in Alpha. And one that I've used before is called moment.js. And it's a basically parse, validate, manipulate, and display dates and times in JavaScript. So it has this enormous amount of, and it's super small, it's 16K, it's just nothing to it. So what this allows you to do is basically do a whole bunch of stuff where you can grab that text date, create a date from it, and it can do all these things. Let's see if there's, let's see, parse. So it's got like parsing where it can parse the date information. So it can check. And here's all the documentation. So you can get like the current time from there. And then, but it has all these really cool manipulation, display capabilities, etc. So what you can do is you can use this as a validation tool. And the nice thing is you're going to be probably looking for a function that's already in moment.js to do what you're doing, and you just need to trigger it within there. So the way you do it is you'll download from here the library, which is again very small. Let me go back up here, up all the way here. So you'll download this moment.js, you'll go into Alpha, you'll copy that into your project, and then you'll go to the properties of the UX you need to, and look for JavaScript, and go to JavaScript link files, and then you just put in here moment.js. So if this is the name of the file that's going to be in your thing, you do it here. Now, once that's there, when Alpha delivers this UX to the browser, it brings along with it this file with it. You could put those in subdirectories. It gives you all examples right here. Now you can just, in your scripting on your, like on the on change event of the field, you can then just have a little piece of JavaScript that uses moment.js. And I just think you'll find that moment.js has all these pre-made stuff, so you don't have to create yourself. It's an industry standard. Lots of people use it. It's really well supported, and it's fast and it's small. And so that's how I would approach that problem. Is I'd use moment.js, do a little studying on that, find the functions, do it, include it in yours. And then, for instance, if I go to controls here, and let's go ahead and add a text box here. Go here, then over here in the, actually you could probably use validation JavaScript right here and do things right here. Or, if you want to do another way, you can say, for instance, where is it, on change, right here, on change event. You could actually go in here and put in your little JavaScript, how it goes here. And that way you'll be able to take complete control over the date format. You could reformat it, you could clean it up, you could validate it, you name it, you can do it, because, and you'll find you don't have to write very much JavaScript. It'll probably be a few lines because Moment does most of the work for you.
Very cool.
Yeah.
In the example they used, they were actually, it looks like, using server-side validation. So they were using an XBasic command, which they had ctod, and then open paren, current value, close paren, is less than date, open close paren, to check to see if it was before that date. What occurred to me is that they could make it that a little bit more bulletproof by using the convert type.
Yes.
And the nice thing about convert type is it doesn't care what you give it. It will turn out the value that you need. So even if you've given it a date, it'll come out as a date. If you give it a number, it'll try to turn it into a date. If you give it to a character field, it'll turn it into a date. So that might be, in this particular case, they might want to just take a look at convert_type and use that to modify their current value option.
It's called convert.
That's that. Yep.
Cool.
Oh, okay. I think it has it.
The nice thing about JavaScript, instantaneous validation right there.
That is awfully cool, and I haven't looked at that, so I'm actually looking forward to playing around with that. Cool, awesome. We had a simple question that came in, maybe not have a simple answer, but it had to do with, let me just confirm that it was the grid control. They were interested in moving the submit button from one side of the form to the other side of the form, and they were wondering if we knew how to do that. So.
Yeah, so really straightforward to do that if you want to is when you have a grid, you can go to properties, and I'm going to search for action buttons. So you can create your own action button. You can then go in here, add that action button, which is submit, give it whatever you want to. And then now you can place it anywhere around where you want it within your there. So you can actually build your own sub action button that does the submit of the grid from there. Now, as far as moving the location just using there, I haven't played with that. I think you might use the master template or something like that.
Well, we'll research it, so we will have the right answer for next time if we don't know.
Yeah,
right
yeah. So action buttons allow you to do it all yourself, kind of scenario.
Oh, okay,
But,
yeah.
Yeah, those are action buttons there. But there's templates built into it that allow you to do some other kind of funky stuff that I haven't played with that much. So I have to look at that.
Cool, very good. Hey, Dan, thanks very much for presenting. Thanks,
you.
Sarah, for standing by. Sarah actually has something cool to present next week.
Yes, I can't wait.
I'm
I'm so excited about that myself.
And we will take the questions that we did not get to today. But in the meantime, if anyone has questions, send them to guides, GUIDES, @alphasoftware.com. Thanks again, and hope to see you next week. Take care and goodbye.